What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. The regular season, the 2022 regular season is over. We know our playoff teams. Pretty fun week 18, I thought. Joining me to talk about it, Ryan Wilson and John Breech. Hello, gentlemen. Hope you're doing well.
Breech, I am doing great, even though my Steelers lost. They didn't lose. They didn't make the playoffs. They did win a huge game against the terrible Browns team. But I am extremely excited because you're looking at what has two thumbs and one, the CBS experts against the spread for 2 years in a row.
Ryan, I would like to congratulate you. I thought we were going to spend the whole podcast breaking down all 282 of your picks this year and go through why you're better than us, and you could have walked us through them. We have better things to do, like talking about the playoffs and talking about the draft and talking about every crazy thing that happened today, including the Seahawks somehow getting to the playoffs without Russell Wilson.
I love it. Like Ryan Wilson loves to say that we live in a simulation, but the biggest example of us living in a simulation is Wilson winning the against the spread picks for 2 years in a row on CBS, despite not really caring about gambling and just sort of throwing it against the wall randomly every week.
Wilson's going to keep bragging about this, and they're going to give him a gambling podcast. So I'd be careful, Wilson. Be careful.
Ooh,
watch what you wish for.
Yep. You can host this podcast if you want. Okay, we're going to dive right in. We got a lot to cover. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6. We're live after every primetime game. I think we'll be, I don't know what our playoff schedule will be per se. We'll definitely be live on Sunday nights. We'll see what else we want to do, but subscribe, turn on alerts, and you'll get notified when we go live. That way you can jump in and hang out with us. And for the most part, just berate me in chat, apparently. I've turned chat back on. I said, corporate, I don't care about you. I'm turning chat back on, baby. There are people in chat saying dunk on Brinson. There's plenty of dunking to go around here. We'll do some
Me
dunking.
and Breech's wrists are sore from dunking on him so much.
So much. I had to change my dunking trash can because it was full.
There's only one person in the entire NFL media who picked the Jags to win the AFC South, by the way.
Is that the same person?
You don't find that suspicious?
Took Jake Fromm to go first overall?
Shut up. I might cuss.
Got a Breech. Got
All
it.
right. I had to rearrange my mixer, so there won't be any dunk buttons. But so we're gonna start off the show by talking about Chase Claypool and what a great trade that was for the Bears. I'm just kidding. We're gonna talk about elsewhere in the NFC North. The Packers got swept by the Lions. My. The fourth quarter, a total disaster for Green Bay. 14 yards, 1 first down. Detroit had 118 yards and 10 first downs in the fourth quarter. Jared Goff topples Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field. The Lions knew walking onto the field that they were eliminated. Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell can coach by, what's the line? I think it's from the original Top Gun, but it's like, you can be my wingman any day. Dan Campbell can coach my team any day. Like, that dude laid it all on the line despite not having anything on the line just to beat the Packers and knock them out of the playoffs, to get a winning record, 9-8, incredible year for the Lions. Packers are sent packing, and the Seahawks are into the playoffs heading to San Francisco. Good luck with that one. I thought maybe, and we can get into this a little bit, I guess, but Aaron Rodgers after the game, Breech, Jameson Williams comes up to him and says, "Hey man, let me get that jersey." He goes, "I think I'm going to hold on to this one." Is it a bigger story that the Packers got swept by the Lions, or is it a bigger story that Rodgers
Maybe played his final game in Green Bay?
Yes.
Look, I will say, to me, that struck me as we have seen multiple time and time again how after Tom Brady loses, he doesn't want to shake your hand. He wants nothing to do with you. He would rather go get in a car and never talk to you again than shake your hand before walking off the field. So that's what it felt like with Rodgers. Kind of 50% of me thought, you know what? Rodgers seems like a guy who is not happy with losing. Jamal Williams is an ex-teammate, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm not giving you a jersey right now. But I do agree that, there is.
No, it was Jameson Williams, a rookie, not Jamal.
Oh, yeah, James. Okay, either way, it's you're not giving your jersey away because, hey, yeah, no, I'm not giving it to you. I just lost. I'm upset. Get away from me. That's my exact thought. And so, but yeah, definitely, I think there is that you can't help but think that Rodgers is thinking, you know what, maybe I'm going to hold on to this one just in case this was the last game I ever play in the NFL. But man, if it is, not a great way to go out, because he made some disastrous throws and even got bailed. He only threw one interception, got bailed out on another interception because the Lions got called for illegal hands to the face. But if you're the Packers, Jared Goff was the better quarterback in this game. I think that's the bottom line. And so that's a big reason why the Lions won.
Breech, who is the biggest Jared Goff homer on this podcast? I've been talking up Jared Goff for months now. I love my man Jared Goff. And here's the sort of a fun story. There are a lot of fun stories from week 18, but one of the fun stories for me is that retread Jared Goff saves the season, not only for the Lions because they finished 9-8, but for also Eugene Cyril Smith III by beating the Packers that allows Geno Smith to get into the playoffs. And if you go back to August, we all thought that none of those guys would be quarterbacks at this point in the season, Jared Goff and Geno Smith. So shout out to both of them for the way they finished. And I think you're right, Breech. It's not an exaggeration to say that Jared Goff outplayed Aaron Rodgers on Sunday night, and he outplayed him for large chunks of this season. When these teams met in week 9, do you guys know, without looking, what the Lions' record was? And they swept the Packers, so you'll get a hint. They won a game in week 9. But what was their record in week 9?
They started 1-6. So probably before the game, say by 2-7. No, 2-8. Oh no, sorry, 2-6.
1-6. They're 1-6. Yeah.
Oh, so they're by. Okay, well, I didn't know what they're by. Where were they?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just watching you argue with yourself, which I sort of enjoyed. Yeah, so they're 1-6, and they finished 9-8. And the Packers had that rough stretch in the middle of the season. Then they got hot towards the end there, but it wasn't necessarily because Aaron Rodgers was lighting people up. It's because the defense was playing well, and it's because the running game got working. And here on Sunday night, after the first half, I thought it was quite interesting that I thought that the Packers blew some opportunities. Now the Lions came down and missed the kick. Mason Crosby was one of the best players on the team for the Packers, which is also interesting. But then Aaron Jones fumbled. So it took what could have been a 6 or 10 point swing and just left it at 9-6 at halftime, I think is what it was. And then Jared Goff got used to cold weather. And the second half was a different story. And then, as you mentioned, Breech, Aaron Rodgers threw 2 interceptions, only one counted. Both went to Kirby Joseph, who becomes the first person in human history to intercept Aaron Rodgers 3 times in one regular season.
What?
Kirby Joseph, who notably quote tweeted Ryan Wilson's evaluation of him. Senior draft analyst Ryan Wilson.
Yeah, he said he loved me. I love him.
Maybe you should get Kirby Joseph's jersey from the game.
There you go. Man, I mean,
all right, let me ask you this, Brinson, quickly. Just a 10-second answer, and Breech, you can follow if you want.
Okay.
Who is the favorite to win the NFC North next year? Just 10 seconds, we'll move on.
The Vikings, but everyone will pick the Lions.
Breech?
The Lions, but everyone picked the Lions.
No, the Lions would not be.
Is Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? What's the story there? Is that
No.
You know what? Just the Lions. It's the Lions.
Love it. All right, let's go. What's next? We can talk about this game. I just don't want to get stuck on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers is in the playoffs. He's actually probably the 6th seed if they don't get swept by the Lions.
Yeah,
but and they lost in week 1 to the Vikings.
And I should say, I've said all along that I don't know if Dan Campbell could coach, but I'd run through a wall for him. To your point, Brinson, my man can coach. And some of the plays that he okayed, I don't know if he called them, but the ones that he okayed, like the one late in the game,
the screen.
It wasn't technically a hook and ladder, but it was a
hook and ladder. It was
a variation of that on a quick throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think. Some of the plays DeAndre Swift made, the decision, and Breech, you need to own this. You wanted to kick the field goal at the end.
No, what did I say after that? I said, you know what? The Lions
after they got
the playoffs, you have nothing to lose. No. I said, as soon as I answered the question, my second response was, they have nothing on the line. You just play for the win.
I do think it's reasonable to ask, would the Lions have run the screen hook and ladder play on that spot, and would they have gone for it?
Now,
if the Seahawks had lost,
Lovie Smith had said, no, I get it. Lovie Smith had said during his game that they had nothing to lose, basically admitting that we play differently when the game doesn't matter. I feel like Dan Campbell is who he is.
We're getting a lot of questions in the chat about Quay Walker. Yeah, the Packers made look. Packers.
I could not stop laughing at that Quay Walker. I don't even know what was going on there.
He shoved an athletic trainer.
I think what happened. My guess.
Hamlin. I mean, like, what are you doing, bro? And we had Rasul Douglas walk up the middle of the line.
I think that needs an explanation because that was too weird even for Breech and his special
went
teams
from a
brain.
48-yard field goal attempt to a 33-yard chip shot. The Packers, the Packers were not a good team this year. They got a chance to get it together, and I do think they're like really good pieces on the Packers, both defensively and offensively. But they were not a good team for most of the year and decided to implode at home in Week 18 against a team with technically nothing to play for other than like just pure spite of not
they had a lot to play for.
Well, and clearly the Lions had like 5 decades worth of spite built up based on how they played. And real quick on the Rasul Douglas play, it was an extremely dumb penalty, but he didn't get it for swiping the ball. He got it because he punched a Lions player in the face because the Packers have called a timeout.
Right.
And then he
didn't get flagged if he didn't do that ridiculous move that no one's ever seen in football.
And then obviously the Quay Walker thing, that was, Detroit was already down there. They had a 1st and 10 from the 11-yard line, which is a lot different than 1st and goal from the 5-yard line. So, I mean, that was just a boneheaded play. That is a play you cannot make.
Let me ask you this, Breech, because you seem to be. Hey, did you mute Brinson?
What's up?
Did you hit the mute button? Hit the mute button. Okay. There you go. Awesome. Let me ask you this, Breech. I think it sometimes helps with the echo. That's why I mentioned.
It's stuff like 90% of the podcast. Well, I would say like 10% of the podcast. I'm talking 90% of the podcast. But
right.
No, so I think that feedback thing is something else. Let me
Okay, well,
I'm gonna pop out. You'll finish this game. I'll pop out and try something with my son.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So, he fake left Breech. There he is. But let me ask this about Quay Walker.
Packers, he's gone. Bye, Brinson.
So the Quay Walker thing. Let me throw this theory at you, and you tell me if it makes sense. So Quay Walker got pushed. He didn't know who pushed him, so he pushed back before he saw who it was. It just ended up being the trainer. And the trainer's like, "Yo, man, I'm trying to help DeAndre Swift, whose ankles may have gotten broken," and it was just a weird thing. And what's weirder is that this is the second time this season. I think he's the first person, also in human history, to get kicked out of 2 games for those sorts of penalties that can get you kicked out of games for.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, if there is one week in NFL history where you don't want to be caught pushing a trainer, it was absolutely this week. And so I do agree with you. I don't think he knew who he was pushing. He just felt that he got kind of tugged in the back and just instantly responded thinking it was a Lions player and not a Lions trainer.
Oh,
and the ref just kind of like almost was shocked at what he just saw, reaching for like, I got to throw a flag here. I mean, I don't know what else to do. So it was just, I mean, a dumb penalty in a dumb situation. And when you're looking at this, between that and the Douglas penalty, I mean, the Packers just imploded. I think we do agree on the quarterback thing about who played better, but I felt like it was a pretty even game. It wasn't like the Lions were the better team or the Packers. No. They both looked good in spurts.
Yeah, that's right.
But when you have 2 dumb penalties, those kind of things can be the difference in something like this. And now Ryan, your buddy.
Which one?
Eugene Cyril Smith III. I've been trying to memorize that all season. Is headed to the playoffs.
That again, I mentioned a moment ago. It is crazy that Jared Goff and Geno Smith are 2 of the biggest talking points in Week 18. And if I'd asked you that in August, you would have said one pushed a trainer and the other one actually was a trainer at this point in the season. And it turns out one helped the other get to the playoffs, and Geno helped the Seahawks in a big way get to the playoffs too. But yeah, it's wild, man. And I think Week 18 had a ton of fun things happen. Steelers didn't make the tournament, but that's okay. A lot of things happened otherwise that we'll get to. But I thought even though the Lions, quote unquote, had nothing to play for, and this was the final game of the regular season, I love the fact that it was, as Brinson likes to call it, an island game, because we got to see Dan Campbell, who, would anyone argue that Dan Campbell did not outcoach Matt LaFleur tonight?
I would just say, if you're the Lions owners, there is nothing that was more impressive knowing that your team has nothing to play for. They cannot get to the playoffs. It is all about just beating the Packers, beating your hated rival, knocking them out of the playoffs. And the fact that Dan Campbell had that team ready to play no matter what. And they I thought there might be some shock because of the way the Seahawks won, that maybe the Lions would be, I know some of the Lions players were claiming they didn't follow the game. They knew, like somebody told them, everyone knew what that game meant.
On the Jumbotron and
Right. And so, just because of the way the Seahawks won, and so the Lions got eliminated in kind of a shocking fashion. And so I thought maybe they'd come out a little flat, but that just wasn't the case. I mean, they were ready to play, and that's a testament to just Dan Campbell being the craziest.
1-6
coach
and
in the
9-8
world.
is really, really good. Like,
Yes, it is.
all right, it's not me then because I've changed everything up. I mean, you're 1-6 and you go to 9-8, and you've got like we thought he was gonna get fired. We were worried about him, and now Dan Campbell like deserves an when he was 1-6. It was a situation where it's like, oh man, this sucks because Dan Campbell might just they just might have to fire him. 9-8, Dan Campbell's got 3 years minimum before anyone like
3 more years.
Yeah,
I don't know about that, but
9-8 with the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be a serious conversation for Coach of the Year. I mean, he probably won't get it, but he should get some votes.
There's too many candidates. I don't disagree, but there's too many candidates.
Yeah.
I mean, Sirianni, Doug Peterson, Dable.
Yeah, I just said he should get some votes.
Bobby Smith.
So he should be what?
All right. No, he'll get some votes, especially if they do the 3 thing now. All right. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who look.
Who dat?
Congratulations on beating the Ravens. That was pretty fortunate to beat the Ravens. Not fortunate. It was like it's fortunate for all of us that they beat the Ravens because I think that the NFL, and I know it was trying circumstances over the last exactly. Joe Mixon's
Brought my coin. I had Joe Mixon FedEx it to me so I could flip it on the podcast.
It was trying circumstances the last week for the NFL. Did you just eat that coin?
Nope, I just flipped it. Heads, the Bengals are hosting a wild card game. Okay.
The fact that the NFL would cancel, like the Bengals got screwed, and it all worked out in the end technically, mostly for the NFL. But the Bengals, if you're a Bengals fan or a Bengals player or anyone involved in that team, you should be pretty furious because the Bengals handled the DeMar Hamlin thing with so much class and like so much deference to Buffalo and to their players and to their coaches and to their fans and did everything right. And then the NFL is like, well, you may win the division, but if you lose to the Ravens on Sunday, we're going to do a coin flip, decide if you have to go to Baltimore and play a playoff game. It's unacceptable.
Breech, what's your solution?
My solution would have been
as a solution. It works.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But so my other issue with what the NFL did is that, look, when that game got canceled, the NFL said, hey, look, the Bills they were in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. They are not anymore because the game's canceled. So what we're going to do is let them play a neutral site AFC championship.
I don't mind that. I don't mind
now,
that.
Now, hold on. Well, let me finish. So what they should have also done is that going into week 17, the Bengals were in the driver's seat for the number 2 seed. If they beat Buffalo, they're the number 2 seed. That's where they would be right now had they beaten Buffalo. And they lost that because of the cancellation, just like Buffalo lost the 1 seed. And so in that sense, same thing. It should be a neutral site or a coin flip playing the Bills because the Bills lost the 1 seed, and he shot the 1 seed really. Bengals lost a shot the 2 seed. And getting the 2 seed is a big deal. So, once the Chiefs won Saturday, the 1 seed didn't, the Bengals should not have been really involved in that. And they weren't unless, Chiefs and Bills both lost. So there's just a lot of the NFL didn't really think it out. They said, all right, it's good for the Chiefs who got the biggest benefit. It's somewhat good for the Bills, but they lose track of the number 1 seed. Although now keep in mind, the Bills don't have to play a road game in the postseason this year. If they win in the wild card round, they'll play at home in the divisional round, and then they'll either host the AFC Championship unless they play the Chiefs, then it's at a neutral site. So the Bills, no road games in the playoffs. And so that's a benefit. Nope. None of that got to Cincinnati. So I was glad that the coin toss, Bengals fans came through and booed the coin toss. That's the kind of enthusiasm that I wanted to see from Bengals fans. I love that Cincinnati came out and took a 17-0 lead. And I love that Joe Mixon did a coin toss celebration. So the Bengals handled this game and the whole situation the past week with class, went out, got their business done, and that's what they needed to do.
I didn't see it, Breech. What did the Joe Burrow coin toss celebration look like?
It was Joe Mixon. He scored from the 1 yard line. He had a coin in his glove. He pulled it out and he flipped it because he was trolling the NFL, mocking the NFL. And so when a lot of people thought that he was, I think, the red zone, I think it was Scott Hansen, and thought it was a mock coin, like he was doing a mock flip, but he had actually pulled a real coin out of his glove and flipped it, and it was hilarious and good for you, Joe Mixon. And you know what? The Bengals are playing with a chip on their shoulder now, so it doesn't even matter. And you're going to have to beat the Bills. You're going to have to beat the Chiefs. You're going to have to beat the best teams if you're going to get to the Super Bowl. So, this team's going to be angry going forward, and maybe it's not the worst thing.
By the way, Chad Ochocinco, he's never been on the podcast, but I mean, we used to, he's our buddy Chad Ochocinco. We used to host a show with him in Fort Lauderdale for CBS. Tweeted last night, he's like, if you guys love me the way I love you, I would bet there were like 5 or 6 Bengals who had coins in their gloves. Whoever scores the first touchdown, you do the coin toss touchdown. Like I bet if you asked him, we need to text our buddy Paul Dano Jr., friend of the podcast.
Well, Joe Mixon talked to Ocho, so he did it, and he even said after the game that, hey, look, I know I'm going to get fined for this, but Ocho's going to take care of it. Chad Johnson's going to take care of it, so we're good.
There you go. I would bet T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Mixon, and definitely Hayden Hurst all had coins in their gloves. Like, you put a dime in your glove, and like if you put it underneath the thing, I mean, you'd be fine, right? It's Bengals smoked the Ravens. We have no idea if Lamar Jackson's going to play in this game. We will talk about playoff matchups down the road. Bengals, Ravens. You know, it's funny, Wilson. If this were like Bengals Steelers and Andy Dalton was the Bengals quarterback, Breech would be pale as a ghost, nervous as hell. And like he has no concerns whatsoever about beating the Ravens.
And you know what? You remember the greatest answer to a press conference question of all time happened today, Brinson? You even threw it in Slack when someone asked Joe Burrow what the Bengals window is. What's your Super Bowl window? And his answer was, the window is my career. That's the kind of confidence you want to have. You want to see in your starting quarterback.
So, Breech, were you at any point thinking, please get the starters out? Because there were a couple teams that we'll talk about that didn't have that conversation until late in the process, and they were beating the crap out of the Ravens.
Well, those couple teams you're talking about had nothing to play for, so the Bengals obviously wanted to win to get, guaranteed the home game.
Brown's the quarterback.
But to answer your question, yes, I thought about midway through the third quarter, get everyone the hell out of there because there's a lot of vicious hits happening in this game. I won't call them cheap, but a lot of Bengals players were taking some.
I won't call them cheap. Having said that,
well, they were taking some big hits, and I mean, T. Higgins got knocked out. Their starting guard got knocked out. He got carted off the field. So
Alex Kappa, T. Higgins got the win. That wasn't a dirty hit, but he came back and dropped a touchdown pass, which his stomach probably hurt. But yeah, I was wondering that myself because, Joe Burrow the window's open while he's upright, but you didn't want him, not to be upright.
It was, what was the biggest gap there? 24-7, 24-7.5
with Anthony Brown at quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, 24-10 in the third quarter. That's two. I mean, a score and then a weird fluky play from your backup quarterback who gives the ball to the Ravens, and all of a sudden it's tied. I don't disagree with you. I just the Bengals. I think the Bengals are. I want the Bengals to win the Super Bowl.
Whoa!
Like really badly.
Song for that one.
Like just shove it in the NFL's face. Like the NFL screwed the Bengals over, and Joe. Like I think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. That's my hot take. I think there's nothing stupider than making Joe Burrow mad in mid to late January, and he's about to go on a ripper and cut through the AFC. That's what I think is going to happen.
The crazy thing is that it's just the team that could sneak up and get them is the Ravens. They just struggle against division opponents. They were going against a third string quarterback today and just couldn't kind of put them away. I mean, they dominated the game.
Yes.
Right. They went 3-3 in the division. They can lose to anyone.
Yeah. The first one they lost to the Steelers because Joe Burrow weighed 185 pounds and he just had.
And they lost in Halloween, and they haven't lost since. No, I mean, I agree with Brinson. I just can't. I don't want to jinx anything.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that game in a little bit. We're going to do a full playoff breakdown shortly, but we need to talk about the fact that Yes. This Naheem
What?
Hines, NC State legend, baby. Oh, come on.
What are you pointing at? I don't know what you're doing.
What did it? Naheem Hines returned the kick to start the Bills game. Nance is screaming storybook. He's at the 20s. He's just blitzing past people. Former Gardner High School track guy. Unbelievable moment. 3 years and 3 months to the last Bills kickoff return. The 11th player in NFL history with 2 kickoff returns in a game. I'll give you one Brinson buck if you can name the last person to do it.
It was Leon Washington.
Right. I'll mail you one Brinson buck.
Save it. Just save the Princeton postage, and we'll save it for later.
Actually, a negative. You actually have to pay me for the postage. So it's
Yeah.
fine.
A Brinson buck is worth like 1/5 of a taco at Taco Bell.
Dude, I mean, look, you can like, yeah, right.
Day old taco.
I'll mail you a warm frozen breakfast burrito. I mean, we can be cynical all we want about the NFL and sports, whatever. What a moment, man. I mean, people are like, the game is rigged. They wanted to do that. No, I mean, that was incredible. If you didn't get goosebumps for that, you're either Ryan Wilson or you're,
Why are you me? I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You're just being so.
I didn't know what you're talking about. You're waving at behind your back. I didn't know you were
playing
waving
against my NC State helmet.
Okay, you can just say that since people are listening to the audio podcast. But yeah, it was a fantastic moment. It was even better when he did it again. And sadly for me, Mac Jones had one of his best games of the season, and it did not matter because the Bills are a really good football team. I do wonder, Breech, just the bigger Bills takeaway, and again, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Are you at all concerned about the sort of Josh Allen turnovers, especially in the red zone? And we saw that again. It didn't matter on Sunday against an overmatched Patriots team, but it could matter once you get to the playoffs where every team conceivably should be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Josh Allen has looked like Josh Allen. I mean, really, since his injury, he's still playing high-level football, and 90% Josh Allen is better than almost every other quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he made a great touchdown pass to Stephon Diggs, but again, he made that ugly red zone interception you were talking about. He's been turning through a couple interceptions against the Bears the last time the Bills played, and so there's just been, he plays some great games, and then there's a couple clunkers in there, and you just don't know what's going to happen when he's playing top level competition. If he does that against the Chiefs and throws these red zone interceptions, that's trouble. It's going to be trouble.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a StreamYard thing with the audio stuff because it's happened the last 2 shows. I don't know. We'll see. But it's not echo. It's like robot blare. It's unlistenable. I don't know, man. I wouldn't. The AFC is so. If I gave you Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals versus the other 4 teams, what would your number need to be to take the other 4 teams? Like, I need to be like 10-1. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean those are some of the.
But like in the NFC, if you said I'll take the top 3, like I don't know, the AFC just feels like it's gonna be one of those 3 teams. Like the Super Bowl line should be AFC -5.5.
Wilson.
My point is you feel not guaranteed, but you feel very good about getting Bengals.
Yeah, but my question to Breech was, are you at all concerned about the turnovers from Josh Allen? Because he's had 19 interceptions this season. 8 times the Bills have turned the ball over inside the red zone, and Allen has 5 red zone interceptions. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean it's not great.
Okay, that's why I'm just asking about how does that manifest itself once we get to playoff football, because playoff football starts in a few days.
Oh, sorry. We're talking about this with Drew and Andy of the Deep Dive Pod, but Wilson, I know this is one of your favorite moments. Remember Josh Allen's first playoff game?
Oh yeah, the behind the back pass.
We were talking about in the light of like San Francisco.
Who was the Texans even quarterback then? Deshaun, I guess.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that feels like 2 lifetimes ago.
Then the Texans were up like 27-0 on the Chiefs. It feels like 400 years ago. Okay.
And now they're on their 3rd head coach since then.
Well, 4th if you count Robo Cradell.
So one more thing quickly before we move on. More concerned about the Bills' run defense because they got shredded, or the red zone turnovers on the offense?
I'm not worried about Josh Allen in big games and big spots. So run defense, I would say.
All right.
I mean, but I'm not worried about Josh Allen.
Okay, I heard you. I got you.
It's me. Mike McDaniel, a winner. In theory, if you wanted to do a winners losers thing, you could, because he snuck into the playoffs.
Well,
Skylar Thompson, man. I know there was somebody was like throwing out he might be on the hot seat, which was outrageous.
Albert Breer wrote that for SI.
No, it was somebody else.
It was Albert Breer. He wrote it in his story.
Well, I mean, if you're 8-3 and you miss the playoffs, I could see an owner getting upset and saying, "Okay, you messed up pretty badly. Maybe." And you have Sean Payton out there,
right?
It was Armando Sergio for Outkick.com. Actually,
that's close, half a dozen. So anyway, I thought you were going to finish with Mike McDaniel. I keep calling Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel.
I love Mike McDaniel though. Falling
into the playoffs. I thought he earned it. They won that football game. It wasn't a fun game to watch. I watched every snap of it, in part because it was on locally, but also I wanted to see how it affected the Steelers. And here's what I learned, Breech. You can't put all your eggs in the Joe Flacco basket if you need Flacco to win you a football game for your team, which isn't quarterbacked by Joe Flacco, to make their way into the playoffs.
Well, I mean, Robert Saleh did it. It almost worked. That's the thing, is he had the eggs, and somehow, it's like eggs should all shatter because he dropped them off a one-story building, and somehow they didn't. I mean, they almost played well enough to win, or their defense did, really. But yeah, I mean, this is a testament to Mike McDaniel. You have Skylar Thompson in there, and there is no reason you should win this game with your third-string quarterback, but you do. So I think that is a huge testament, especially coming off this losing streak they were on. So, look, an ugly win is a win, especially when it gets you to the playoffs. So the Dolphins are we've seen what they can do. They've already beaten the Bills once this season. And if you throw Teddy or Tua out there, I think they at least have a chance, which we'll talk about later. But, you can't have Skylar Thompson starting for you in the playoffs, even though he got them to win on Sunday.
No, I think that's right. And credit to Mike McDaniel for actually leaning on the running game because he was forced to. We've seen in recent history where they've been airing the ball out because of Jalen and Tyreek. Tyreek had an ankle injury, and he was on and off throughout the game. So, you have Raheem Mostert. Let Raheem Mostert do his thing, and we saw glimpses of that. And look, Skylar Thompson ain't the answer, but to your point, Breech, I thought he did as well as you could have hoped for someone not named Brock Purdy to go in there and ball out. So he was 20-31, only 152, didn't throw an interception. And the running game led by Mostert and Wilson, who in my mind are basically the same person, which is funny because one rusher 72, one rusher 71, do their thing. And again, Flacco the offensive line was banged up for New York. The defense was bent and then eventually broke. I mean, it was 6-11 for Christ's sake. But again, not a fun game to watch, even though I forced myself to do it for strictly selfish reasons.
Good news. Time to talk Eagles. So I don't know if it's a me thing or a StreamYard thing, but I'm gonna try and fix something. So Billy's gonna pop on. I'm gonna leave. Let me know if there's any feedback. I'm gonna do a little try and do some audio engineering here and fix the feedback issue because it's terrible and it's unacceptable for a podcast. So, Billy, your Eagles clinch the #1 seed. Very excited for you. Tell Wilson and Breech about it.
I mean, it's just so on par for the Philadelphia Eagles to make every Eagles fan watch every single minute of this game and couldn't sit back and relax and watch the second teamers get in there and get some reps. Because for some reason, our red zone offense just couldn't get it together today. We were able to move the ball up and down the field, but Jalen Hurts, either it was a penalty or just poor execution today. Just wasn't able to get the whole offense in general, just wasn't able to get the job done, which was frustrating to see. But as an Eagles fan, you'd rather see that in a game like this that doesn't really mean anything except you figuring out a way to win this game and locking up that #1 overall seed. So, I do believe that Jalen will, be more, on track and more precise with his throws. And I mean, they were also people also have to remember they're being intentional. They weren't doing any RPOs, to be honest. They weren't having Jalen run the ball at all. So, like let's take it easy and let's not be too hard on these guys. But at the same time, it was not a very fun game to watch, if I have to say so myself.
Breech, tell me what you think about this. I thought this was an important game for Jalen Hurts to get back out there to knock the rust off because they're going to have this week off now. So that's important. And he didn't need to go out there and throw for 500 yards. Hit an interception, didn't throw a touchdown, didn't run, which was smart. You don't want him running. And you let the starters play, and they had to play longer than perhaps they wanted to. And everything, you checked every box. Everything's fine, and you won the game, get the number one pick. The bigger story for me was the difference between this Giants team in 2022 as opposed to 2021 pre-Brian Dable.
Yeah, well, I mean, real quick on the Eagles that, Billy mentioned that they weren't running RPOs, and you just said that they weren't asking Jalen Hurts to run, which is obviously what you want to do because you're thinking the Giants have all their backup players in here. We're just going to run this vanilla offensive game plan because we think we're obviously better. Our starters are better than them, and we don't want to get anyone injured, and then we get our week off, and we'll be fine. But, yeah, Jalen Hurts absolutely had to get out there because if he had not played this week and, the Eagles win, and then he comes out and plays in the divisional round on January 22nd, he would have gone more than a month without playing in a game. And then you have to worry about him shaking off the rust, which we saw today is not easy to do when you miss a substantial amount of time. So I thought getting him out there was huge. But, man, the Giants, I mean, I didn't expect anything from them. I thought they were going to lose this game 34-0. And like you said, Billy, the Eagles did their best to make sure every fan had to keep watching. Every time you thought Philly was going to blow this open, either – I don't even know if I would call it an ugly mistake by Philly or if the Giants they were doing just enough to stay in the game and keep it interesting. And the Giants are a well-coached team now, which is something you haven't been able to say about this team. And so, I mean, Joe Judge, what's going on here? It's sure. It's just like watching the Giants play intelligent football is just so different. And to think that this team actually stayed in this game with half their starters on the bench, man, they could be dangerous in the playoffs.
That's the thing, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but you watched this Giants game, and again, I don't even put this on the Eagles so much. I put it on Brian Dable getting the most out of the second and third teamers, including Davis Webb, who I didn't even know was still in the league. And then you look at what the Cowboys did with their starters out there, just like stinking that place up against Sam Howell, who last played for UNC. I would be very concerned if I was Jerry Jones. I'd be very excited if I were the Mars and the Tisches, the Giants owners, because the toughest thing to do is get a franchise quarterback, maybe the second toughest thing, and maybe it's close. Maybe there's a gap between these two, but get the right GM and right coach in there. And I mean, Brian Dable feels like an absolute grand slam in the ninth inning of the Game 7 of the World Series. He has been an absolute game changer. So that was fun to watch, in part because what was the spread? 14.5 at one point. Because this was part of my, go ahead
and pat yourself on the back. Go ahead.
My run to first place. I needed the Giants to come back. I didn't want them to win because I wanted the Eagles to get the number one seed. So that was fun to watch for strictly non-playoff purposes. But and by the way, not to call people out, but Reed Blankenship, you might not want to check social media after you got steamrolled by my man Davis Webb on that touchdown run. Hey-o.
That was
so bad. But I think, Dable definitely said something before this game, because everybody knew that the Philadelphia Eagles were 5 sacks away. They had to have 5 sacks to break the record for most sacks in a season in NFL history. And Webb had ample chances to hold onto the ball to try and make a play happen, and he never did. Every single time he threw the ball away. He even went so far as to take a grounding penalty just so that he wouldn't take a sack. And we ended up not being able to get the sack record for the year, even though it was still a great year for the defense. And having 3 to 4 guys in double-digit sacks is unbelievable and unheard of, especially in the NFL. But I don't care. Nobody can tell me anything. Dable said something to his whole offense and his offensive line and his quarterback and said, we are not going to let them get that sack record on us tonight. I just know it. I know it.
And I think the Eagles finished the season with 70 sacks, which was tied for the third highest total in NFL history. And they only needed 3 to break the record. And like you said, it seemed like the record was there for the taking because you're going up against backup line. You're going up against a third string quarterback. And Wilson, you said that I don't even remember David Webb still being in the league, which makes sense. He's been in the NFL since 2017. He has never thrown a pass in his career. The first pass he threw was today, and he threw 40 of them. So he somehow went almost 5 full seasons in the league without throwing a single pass. That is how you earn a paycheck.
Yeah,
how do you throw 40 times and not get sacked one? I think all of the sacks didn't even come off of him. They came off of the missed fake field goal, and I think it was like a fake end around toss or trick play that they tried to do. He didn't get sacked once today.
I think you said it was the Dable fear of God. He said, look, man, because the one time he came off the field after a mistake, and he looked scared after Dable gave him the glare, after they gave him a little side eye. And I think that set him straight. But I'm not worried about the Eagles here. I don't know if you are, Breech, and I'm very encouraged, sort of like the Lions, about the Giants' future.
Yeah, no, if you're the Giants, you feel like you're in good hands for once, which, God bless Giants fans for dealing with everything they have dealt with over the past 5 to 7 years, where it's just been, you had the boat race playoff game where everybody was on the boat and they lost. And that's literally been New York's only playoff appearance since 2012, since they won the Super Bowl in 2011. And so that's like the memory you're holding on to. Then you're thinking about Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur and Joe Judge, and just thinking, why can't this front office make a good hire as a head coach? And then boom, now you have Brian Dable and you have to feel pretty good about your future.
Yeah, for real.
Not sure you guys said it, but shout out to our old colleague, Sean Wagner-McGough, who once wrote a flowery profile on his former alumni from UCal Berkeley, Davis Webb.
3 Cal starting quarterbacks in the NFL today. Davis Webb, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers.
1 and 2 for Cal.
Did Darius Slay kind of he's kind of had a drop off since the beginning of the year, especially the beginning of the year. He was hot, he was on fire, a lot of interceptions, and he's been, giving up a lot of yards, but gave a big touchdown this week. Is that something to be
Is he covering Galladay? Because that's a problem.
He did. He was the one who gave up the Galladay touchdown. Thank you, Brinson, for bringing that up and then leaving. Yeah. But is that something that the Eagles fans should be worried about? Darius Slay given, not really being his strongest, not playing at his highest going into the playoffs, or do you think he'll turn it up once the playoffs come?
I'll be honest, I'm not worried about Darius Slay.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that Kenny Galladay doesn't show up for a single game all season, and then finally in the fourth quarter just makes one of the most bonkers touchdown catches of the year. And I'm sure that Dayball's thinking, like, where's that been all season, man? Like, what's going on here? But maybe Galladay's just trying to earn some playing time for the playoffs, making catches like that.
That's his first touchdown as a Giant, by the way.
Yeah.
They paid him a ton of money, and he had his first catch in week 18 of the second year of that monster contract.
Okay. That is ugly.
Hopefully my technological improvements have fixed this. Bill, you good on the Eagles here?
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
Bye, Billy. Miss you.
Billy.
Billy doesn't have feedback.
Man, whatever. I don't care. I don't want the feedback either. We mentioned the Mike Tomlin winning season. Do you want to touch on that a little bit further, Wilson?
I didn't think it was possible. I'll be honest with you. It was absolutely, they were 3-7, I think, at one point, and they were playing some truly god-awful football. And I'm fine that they didn't go to the playoffs. I mean, it would have the same thing happened last year when they backdoored the way in the playoffs. They had to go to Kansas City and get their doors blown off or whatever. I mean, I don't need to sit through that. But it was a good end of the season. They won against a terrible Browns team who set themselves back what feels like decades, even by Browns standards, with what they've done to get their quarterback. And, there's hope for Kenny Pickett. That was fun. George Pickens, awesome. Hopefully they'll fix the offensive coordinator situation. And somehow, some way, Breech, Tomlin finished 9-8, which is, and the list of improbable things that happened this year actually isn't that high on the list because a lot of crazy things have happened, including the Lions game we just talked about. But it's pretty crazy given where this team was, a month and a half ago.
I mean, they were 2-6 going into November. It seemed like Tomlin's done. He doesn't. This is just, you're trying to find a new quarterback. It's not working out. And I mean, on Twitter, you had Steelers fans saying, hey, it's time to move on for Mike Tomlin. And then he goes out and finishes the season 7-2 down the stretch. And yeah, this was easily one of his best coaching jobs, considering the talent he had on that roster, and to squeeze 9 wins out of them and kind of school the Browns. After I feel like the Browns beat the Steelers in the playoffs, that, Browns fans started getting a little cocky and thinking, hey, we finally passed the Steelers in the division. And here you are back at square one, Browns fans, with a 2-touchdown loss to the Steelers in the final week of the season.
Also worth noting to call Brinson out, who was huge on the Chase Claypool deal. The Steelers now have the number 32nd pick, basically 2 first-rounders. Thank you, Brinson.
You're not calling me out. You're giving me credit.
You love that move.
right. I actually got like a bunch of people to like adding me on Instagram today who were like, you need to take a victory lap on Wilson and Breech over the Chase Claypool trade because that was a disaster for
Well, I'm glad I could make your social media dreams come true as a middle-aged man who's on Instagram.
Yeah, that's really what I was looking for. It's a bunch of Instagram alerts.
I don't think any of us really liked it. You were just the most adamant.
No. There was like a 15-minute thing where y'all berating me. You're like, it's a second-round pick. Doesn't mean that much. I said, there's a chance it's a top 35 pick. And I'm pretty sure if you pull the tape that Wilson's like, there's no chance in hell because the Bears had won 2 out of like, the Bears were like 2-4 at that point or something.
No, they weren't 2-4 because the trade deadline's in November.
Whatever they were. Look, I'm spiteful enough to go back and find the tape.
Well,
But
no.
you're lazy enough not to do it.
I remember the conversation. We were talking about how the move didn't make any sense because the Bears also traded away key pieces, so there's no reason to give away draft picks when you're rebuilding. But you were the one that said it was way too high.
You got look.
You had the charge, Brinson. Just take the credit.
You want to push me on this? This is one where my spitefulness will outweigh my laziness. So
I doubt it. I'm willing to take that chance.
To-do list Monday.
Monday 2025.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, I think, is that there are like a ton of really good candidates for Coach of the Year. You could go with, I mean, obviously, I'm sort of starting from the NFC West and moving up, but like Kyle Shanahan, Pete Carroll, nobody in the NFC South, clearly. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings may have limped in, but they're 13-4. Dan Campbell at 9-8 is a candidate. Obviously, Nick Sirianni is a very good candidate. I don't think it's insane to suggest Mike McCarthy is in the mix.
That is
Brian
insane.
Dable.
Did you watch today?
Yeah,
I'm just the Cowboys are 12-5.
It's insane.
Brian Dable is definitely Brian Dable might win. I think Andy Reid would be a good candidate at 14-3. After today, I can't give it to Brandon Staley either. Doug Peterson, of course, is in the mix. Zach Taylor deserves some consideration. I'm not sure John Harbaugh should be ruled out. Mike Tomlin.
Yes, he should be ruled out.
10-7 with no Lamar for a month.
They lost like 4 games after giving up a double-digit lead. You're not getting Coach of the Year for that. That would be outrageous.
I'm saying there have been some really good coaching jobs. Mike Tomlin, 9-8 with that team. Good coaching job. Sean McDermott, 13-3 deserves a nod.
I think I would probably give it to Dable
or
Pete Carroll or Peterson.
I think it's Sirianni.
I just think the Eagles had a playoff roster and he made it
Pete
better.
Carroll's a great one. Pete Carroll would be even better if Russ Wilson had to present it to him at the honors.
I think it's either Dable or Sirianni, and it depends on like whether you want to vote for the team with the number 1 seed or the team who just completely outperformed what their expectations. But remember, 2017 Bills with Sean McDermott did not win the award. Moving along to whatever else. The Jags won on Saturday. Speaking of terrible coaches or great coaches, Doug Peterson, Urban Meyer. My God, Urban Meyer, what a loser. I mean, it's like Urban Meyer's tenure in Jacksonville couldn't possibly get any worse. And then the Jaguars go and win the division the next year with a semi-competent head coach in Doug Peterson. That happened on Saturday night. Shout out to me, the only person on planet Earth to pick the Jaguars to win the division before the season. Victory lap numero dos. Are the Jaguars
number two is right about that.
You should have a whole podcast taking victory lap, Brinson, because that one, I don't agree with the Claypool one, but that one we absolutely did make fun of you for and laughed in your face for a good 20 minutes. Even though, I remember one of us saying that, yeah, maybe they get in the playoffs, sneak in as a wild card, but nope, we weren't buying your Jags could win the division. And here we are in January.
Nick Costas was like, everyone bet the Jags. It's like, yeah, everyone bet the Jags at like 7-1 or 8-1. Nobody picked the Jags just to win the division with like no odds. I was gave away 7-1 like CLV. No one picked the Jags.
I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm no juice box.
I mean, the irony is that they probably shouldn't have even won this game. They got outplayed by a team that has a quarterback was on the roster for 17 days, and their defense bailed him out with a fumble return touchdown in the fourth quarter. But yes, they are in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, a win's a win.
A win is a win.
All right, we'll get
Congratulations
to
on your new podcast called Numero Dos.
Can't be worse than with the first pick.
You can't make fun of it yet. It's still a new podcast trying to find its legs. No jokes yet.
It's profit of our YouTube channel. It's fine. Yeah, Jags won. Crazy game. Obviously, Chiefs won Saturday. We're going to move past those games and get to the Chargers. What do you? I guess we're technically supposed to talk about Lovie Smith getting fired. I think that's a good segue to the draft talk.
Well, no, let's talk the Chargers first because they're going to play Jacksonville in the playoffs. So then go to Lovie.
That's why I like my rundown initially. The Chargers. Brandon Staley should be fired for what he did on Sunday.
Settle down. I mean, you can talk about why you're angry about it, but he's not getting fired for that.
Why are you? Okay.
I don't think it was smart, but you're literally going to fire the man. I would imagine. Okay, well, that's what you said, so I want to make sure because you say a lot of crazy things. I mean,
it could be fired.
And just to be clear, in case people weren't following the playoff race super closely, is that after the Bengals beat the Ravens, that at the 1 p.m. time slot, that clinched the 5 seed for the Chargers, who were kicking off at 4:25. So by the time they played at 4:25, they had nothing to play for. It did not matter whether they won or lost. There was no reason to put any starters out there, and yet they played them for the 3.5 quarters.
3.5 quarters, yeah.
He played Keenan Allen after he pulled Justin Herbert. Like Joey Bosa was limping off. Mike Williams was carted off, and he still left the starters in there. And again, this is a guy who has rested every single relative and or pertinent player for every single preseason game, aka a meaningless game, for the entire tenure of his coaching career. And in a week 18 game, when they could not move up or down in the seedings, he put his franchise quarterback out there, his 2 best wide receivers, his stud running back, and every one of his defensive players out there against the Broncos, who were trying hard. What's that?
And still lost.
And lost. It made no sense. It makes no sense. And if Mike Williams doesn't play next week, then Brandon Staley has some questions to answer.
And he had back spasms, and they think he'll be maybe okay, but who knows? The other thing is, if Brandon Staley studied the NFL playoff schedule at all for the past 10 years, he would have known for sure that there's 100% chance, even before the playoff schedule came out, that Jacksonville versus the Chargers was going to be a Saturday game. That was just a lock. That was the lock of the week, that game was going to be played on Saturday, which means you're on a short week. So not only are you playing your starters in the 4:25 window, but you've got to turn around and play on Saturday when Jacksonville gets the full week off because they played on Saturday. So I would have rested my starters just because Jacksonville already has a day of rest on me. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Or play them for a quarter. You know, the Buccaneers did that with Tom Brady. That's fine. Trying to get him a couple records. Put your starters in for a quarter if you want. You don't play them for 3.5 quarters.
If you got contract incentives, you want to get records, do what you got to do. If you don't give them the first quarter, then pull them out of there. Playing them after halftime is coaching malpractice. I'm sorry. It just is. Okay.
But you would have to imagine that he had this conversation with Tom Telesco, the GM, and presumably the owner. So while you may disagree with it, and I disagree with it, I don't think he was out there as a loose cannon just doing whatever he wanted to do.
Well, then that's a bigger problem. I mean, that's why you would hope he had the conversation. If he did have whatever, we can move on from this.
Brandon, he was asked about it after the game, and here's what he said. There are only 48 guys that you can choose from, disrespectful to kickers and punters and long snappers, and these aren't easy decisions. Hindsight is perfect for everybody outside. Editor's note, I'm talking to you, Will Brinson, but these games are not easy to manage. They're not, because you don't have that many players. We did it to the best of our ability. Also,
that's bull crap.
He could have called up Brian Dable and said, "Hey, man, what do I do? How do I bench starters? How does that work?"
He literally played multiple quarterbacks and like 5 different. They only had 4 wide receivers active, by the way. So it was Keenan, Mike, Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter. That's bad coaching. They could have sat every meaningful offensive player, which is how they can win in the postseason. and not been concerned about the injury status. It was just bad coaching.
Several players on the Chargers agree with Staley's decision to start.
That's fine. It's bad coaching.
Yeah, players are going to agree with it because no one wants to sit out a game. I mean, Brady leading into the Buccaneers game was like, yeah, I want to play and I'm going to play. And so it's just a matter of you're the coach. You have the final say. Like, all right, guys, you play one half or one quarter, just not almost the whole game.
If it's Herbert with back spasms and not Mike Williams, it is a full on 2 hours tomorrow, first take roasting of Brandon Staley and how he botched his chance to win a playoff game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't agree with it.
Let's
The
move on.
decision. I'm just telling you what he said.
Well, I know what he said. He always says this. I don't know if I like Staley or not. All right, let's take a break. No, actually, one more. One more game. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Who wrote this in the rundown? But looks like ass. Must be Brian.
You turned into Ron Burgundy.
Looks like ass. They look like cheeks, as the kids say. They look terrible against Washington. Shout out to Sam Howell for becoming the next great Washington sports superstar. I mean, you talk about like the Chargers and the Cowboys are the two, and for different reasons. I thought the Cowboys could have pulled their guys too. Chargers needed to pull their guys. Cowboys at least were like watching in theory, watching the Eagles game. The Cowboys look terrible, and there's no reason to feel remotely confident about them in Super Wildcard Weekend, Ryan Wilson, when they go to play my guy, Thomas Edward Brady.
So what are you asking? Should I be worried about the Cowboys?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I was watching that game, that steaming pile of a football game, and thinking exactly what you're talking about. I've been Dookie talking Tom Brady for weeks, even months now. And then Mike McCarthy goes out there, turns his Jason Garrett headset off, and pretends he's coaching a volleyball game or lacrosse or something. He wasn't coaching a football game out there. I don't know what was going on. Dak Prescott, I think, completed 30-something% of his passes, had a pick six. And no one looked like they'd played football before. And you can yell and scream about Brandon Staley, and rightly so, but at least the Chargers competed. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing out there. Like, the Cowboys were not playing. They got absolutely embarrassed by Sam Howell and that crew.
Sarah's good, by the way.
I would have much bigger concerns if I'm Jerry Jones. I'm sure Jerry Jones is racking his brain about what his coaching plans are going to be if the Cowboys go 2 for 2 in terms of going one and done in the playoffs, because the way it ended last season what was embarrassing to say the least. And this game right here in week 18 was equally as embarrassing. And if things go sideways against old Tommy Brady in Tampa, Lord help Mike McCarthy.
Well, and if you're going to send your starters out there, that's a disheartening loss where you're like, all right, we're going to try and win this game. And not only do you not win, but you lose by 20 points and you don't even put up 200 yards of offense. I mean, this was the Cowboys' second lowest offensive total since 2009. And they did this the week before the playoffs start in a game they were trying to win with their starters. So for that to happen, and Dak Prescott, I mean, I don't know what's going on with him, but he has thrown 10 interceptions since week 12. That is a lot of interceptions. And so I'm not sure. I don't know what you do. And then that's offensively. So if the offense struggles, you're thinking, the Cowboys defense is so good, it will bail them out. Well, the Washington Commanders put up 300 yards of offense with Sam Howell as their quarterback. And Jason Garrett made a great point at some point on Sunday night. The guy who used to coach the Cowboys pointed out that, hey, Dallas is 1-4 this season when they play on natural grass because it slows their defense down. They have more speed on turf. They can't take advantage of that as much when they play on natural grass. And so they slows down the pass rush and they just tend to struggle more. And we saw that not only in this game against the Commanders, we saw it in week 1, it's happened multiple times. They're 1-4. And so they play on natural grass next week in Tampa Bay with a quarterback and Dak Prescott is struggling and a defense that's struggling right now. And man,
Thomas Edward Brady,
Thomas Edward.
There's nothing I want more in life than to spend the next 4 weeks watching Tom Brady make a Super Bowl run and Brian Wilson being pissed off.
We ain't mad about it. I'll be fine with it. I mean, the Cowboys are not a good football team.
I got a Bucks Bengals Super Bowl future, 85-1.
Oh my God. don't even know what I would do there. Bucks, Bengals.
No, all they have to do is meet. I don't care who wins; they meet.
I don't think we don't have Brady on the rundown. No, we don't. Okay, so here's if Brady does get the Super Bowl, obviously the Buccaneers are in the playoffs with an 8-9 record. Here are your 2 fun facts. Number 1, they are the 6th team in NFL history to make the playoffs with a losing record.
2 of the other ones are the Panthers.
And fun fact number 2 is no team with a losing record has ever made it past the divisional round.
Checks out.
There you go.
What are the other teams? 2 of the Panthers, right?
The Saints are the Seahawks in 2010, the Beastquake game when they beat the Saints. The Commanders in 2020.
They lost to the Vikings.
Right. And then in 1982, their strike shortened season where there were 16 teams in the playoffs, and the Browns and Lions both got in with a 4-5 record.
Nice. 4-5. What a time to be alive.
Tom Brady versus Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Hellscape for Breech when Tom Brady.
My 2 favorite quarterbacks
Bengals win that game by 3 touchdowns.
Let's sneak a bet on the Bucs to win the Super Bowl just for Wilson.
He's gonna do it.
You can do it. Yeah, that's fine. That's your money.
And Brinson, Wilson, the Buccaneers were dominating the Bengals when they played back in December until Brady melted down the second half.
There you go.
I mean,
Joe Burrow ain't great.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and look at the playoff grid, the bracket. Look at some matchups and talk about how far Tom Brady can make it in the playoffs until he meets Joe Burrow. Next. Okay. We got a bracket. I love the playoff bracket. Get like general rating. So we've seen the wild card weekend schedule. We've seen the AFC, NFC bracket. How would you guys rate this? Relative scale to normal playoff, on a scale of 1 to 10.
What do you mean?
Do you think it's? I mean, because it's not.
How excited are we?
Well, it's. I think it's gonna be it's a really. It could be crazy, but it's not like an elite. Because there's no. There's not there's. It could be crazy, but there's no there's one marquee matchup, maybe 2 or 3. There's just not a ton of marquee matchups. I don't think. Let's say you.
I think it's playoff football, so it's plenty of reasons to be
awesome. I'm just saying there's. I mean, look.
Jaguars Chargers is actually a really good game. I mean,
Jaguars Chargers is the best game in the AFC. That's in the first weekend. That's a problem.
It's not necessarily if Lamar comes back and then the Bengals, all the stuff swirling around the Bengals with the coin flip and all that, and then if Tua comes back or Teddy B has to play, yeah, I mean it's not Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning every week, in every matchup, but I think there's a compelling storyline for all these games. Yeah, I'm a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give it a 7.5 or an 8.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be.
That's fine.
I'm gonna give it 9.
Well, that's because the Bengals are the 3 seed.
Well, I mean that helps, but look, you have 3 divisional rematches, and so when you look at that, the only one was a sweep was 49ers Seahawks. So I'm thinking that almost everyone's going to pick the 49ers. But look, the Bills and Dolphins split it 1-1. And granted, we don't know if Tua is going to play, but when they played in Buffalo a few weeks ago, everybody thought that the Dolphins were going to get run off the field because it was freezing weather and they can't win when it's under 35 degrees.
It was 40, it was 80 degrees in there.
No, it was in Buffalo in December. It was not. It was freezing cold. And the Dolphins lost by 3 in a game that most people thought they were going to lose by 2 touchdowns. And then obviously the Bengals and Ravens, they split those games 1-1. And so the Ravens didn't play horrible today, considering they benched a bunch of their starters and were down to their 3rd string quarterback. So I don't think that's a gimme by any means for the Bengals. And then Buccaneers, Cowboys. Hey, the Cowboys, we were talking last week about who would be favored in that game. And look, the Buccaneers beat that team back in week 1. The Cowboys haven't looked great the past few weeks. And then Jacksonville Chargers, guess what? The Jags beat the Chargers 38-10 earlier this season. So that is, I think all these games are fascinating except for Seahawks 49ers. But that feels a little bit fascinating just because Brock Purdy in the playoffs. And as I've said, rookie quarterbacks struggle in the playoffs.
All right, let me ask you this. Who starts for the Dolphins?
Mike Glennon.
Who starts for the Dolphins, Breech?
Teddy. I think it's Teddy.
All right, Teddy starts. So here's the wins over Wilson line. Bills -5. Who you taking?
The Bills. It's -10 right
All
now.
right, who's starting for the Ravens?
I think Lamar plays.
Breech?
Yeah, I think Lamar plays too.
All right, Bengals minus, it's gonna be like minus, I'll say -4.5.
I mean, I'll probably take the Bengals, but I don't think it's. I mean, Lamar just hasn't played in so long. It'll be a month and a half almost.
Bengals are gonna roll in that game.
Yeah,
Jaguars
Bengals are rolling.
Jaguars -2.5.
Tugging at my heartstrings here. I'm going to take the Jaguars. Plus
Jacksonville's currently a 1-point underdog. That
Let's do it a 1.5.
Well,
Yes.
wins over Wilson doesn't take into account fandom. So I love the Chargers in that game. So we'll see what happens. But they're all close. I think, Brinson, you're right. The Bills spread should be larger depending on.
and Vikings Giants. That game went down to the wire when those two teams met. So
Well, we're just doing the AFC right now.
oh,
You
we
know-
are.
You know what's funny before we move on?
Graphic.
A year ago, and going back to Brinson's hatred of my guy Brandon Staley, if they tied that game, the Chargers go. They don't tie the game. Derek Carr has a chance to beat the Bengals in Cincinnati in that first round, and Derek Carr has not played in 2 weeks because he got benched for Jarrett Stidham. Here we are, crazy.
I think we get chalk advancement on the AFC side of things, where the Bills move forward, regardless of who plays quarterback. Now, if I were ranking the quarterbacks, 1, Mike Glennon, obviously. 2, Teddy Bridgewater. 3, Skylar Thompson. The Bengals are going to torch the Ravens. Torch. Joe Burrow's pissed off, and he's going to smoke whoever he sees in the playoffs.
I don't know. Breach is worried.
I think so
I'm not-
Brandon,
I don't think it's an absolute lock. I'm going to pick the Bengals. I
It's
think
not
the
a lock.
Bengals are going to win, but I don't think they're going to destroy them.
Lamar hadn't practiced in like a month. The Chargers-Jaguars game is interesting because you have Trevor Lawrence first playoff games. If you look at these, like there's not a lot of really good first playoff games from young quarterbacks ever. Like Peyton Manning was 19 of 42, I think. Tom Brady's, what Tom Brady's first playoff game was?
Played against the Steelers.
Nope. It was the second one. This thing called the Tuck Rule.
Mm.
Anyway,
I mean,
I'm just saying, but it's like,
well, an example of that real quick, Brinson. Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdown passes in 2018.
Yep.
You know what he did in his first playoff game?
not great, Breach.
0.
And so you have Herbert first playoff game, Lawrence first playoff game. But to me, the big deciding factor is the fact that Brandon Staley first playoff game versus Super Bowl winning coach Doug Peterson, and he's at home. And I think the Chargers roster is generally better. But if that line's moved 1.5 already, like if you're giving me if you're making the Jaguars dogs at home against Staley, given what we have a minimal number of instances where he's been in key situations coaching, but like last year is a big red flag. And Doug Peterson's at least got the onion sack to go for it. I want the Jags, Bengals, Bills advancing here. How about y'all?
No, I got the Chargers winning.
Okay.
But the Bengals and Bills are definitely going through.
Yeah.
Not definitely going through. I feel like they have a very, very good chance to win.
Breach.
Yeah, probably go Bills, Bengals, Jags.
You guys are being disrespectful against the guy who's.
But I mean, look, I'm again. I just think the Ravens. I think the Ravens are just.
Stop.
Stop.
No one wants to hear that
This
BS.
is so
Breach.
ridiculous.
Yes.
So
They don't
look,
have a quarterback.
Chargers Jaguars is going to be close. It just is. I think the Bengals blow out the Ravens,
They're going to.
and I think the Bills annihilate the Dolphins.
And they very well could, especially if Teddy's still banged up. Tua, I think, probably doesn't play. Just speculating here. And if you go with Skylar Thompson, you're going to lose by 50 points. No disrespect.
I do agree with that. If Skylar Thompson's the starter, the Bills are going to roll. But Teddy gives him a chance. Tua gives him a better chance.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
trying
right.
to find to see if we can get a. Oh, there we go. Let's see. 1 sec. All right, so you could do a Bills, Bengals. I'm trying to find the third money line team here. Niners. Ooh, Bills.
Well, and the thing with the Dolphins and the Bills is that when they played in December in Buffalo, a big reason Miami stayed in that was because Mostert ran for like 130, 140 yards. And if the Dolphins get going like that on the ground, it takes a lot of pressure off your quarterback. And that's the kind of game that Teddy can win. And, what do we know about Teddy? Road games, isn't he unstoppable against the spread?
Yeah, it's kind of flipped back the other way.
What?
Yeah, I know.
So quickly, our guy Stephen O just sent out these simulations. So what do you think the Jaguars' chances are percentage-wise to beat the Chargers?
55%.
Breech, you want to guess, or you done guessing?
Jacksonville's chances?
Yeah, percentage-wise to beat the Chargers.
47.
57. Breech wins. Brinson wins, excuse me. Buffalo.
What? Then
Buffalo's
they're wrong if Brinson wins.
Buffalo's chances against the Dolphins. No, we don't know anything in terms of quarterbacks. We just
78.
92.
76. Breech is obviously looking at the email right now.
Yeah, clearly.
And finally,
It's like I'm not losing a third one.
Cincinnati's chances against Baltimore, according to our guy Stephen O.
Everyone watch Breech's eyes.
I was going by the point spread and doing the percentages in my
look
head.
at you. All right, Rain Man. What's Cincinnati, Baltimore then?
I don't know what the point spread is.
You
in that
guess
game.
first. How do you not know what the point spread is for this game? It's your team.
He's
Well,
looking
because I had
at
just looked at
ass off.
I had just looked at Bills Dolphins, which is at 11 points, and I told you guys Jacksonville Chargers, which was
what does
1
your gut tell you for the
Give us the number, man.
Bengals?
My gut tells me to go full Gronk, 69.
All right, Brinson.
Bengals over Ravens?
Yeah.
Well, this is a Stephen O projection. I'll say it's 57%.
Oh, he's 100% looking at the email. He looked at the email.
Me?
It's 57 on the dot.
Yes.
You lost Breech 2-1. So
No, Stephen O's a huge Ravens fan.
I won because I had a better guess. My guess was more creative.
anyway, that was a fun little thing. All right.
I put out Bills, Bengals, Niners, money line parlay, -118. Don't hate that.
All right. Well, Godspeed to you.
Do you hate that?
No, but I only stick to my against
the Bills,
the
the Bengals, and the Niners have to win their games, and you basically get like a little bit worse than normal juice.
All right. No, I don't hate it. I'm sure Breech is worried about Anthony Brown throwing for 5,000 yards, but that makes one of us on this podcast. All right,
I'm not worried about Anthony Brown.
Go to the
Anthony
NFC
Brown was so bad, he handed the Bengals 2 touchdowns.
Breech, we're on to the NFC.
Yeah,
Okay.
quit whinging about it then.
I'm just saying.
We're on to
Seahawks.
Cincinnati.
At
We're
49ers.
Off of Cincinnati.
Oh my God. Stop talking about Anthony Brown. Seahawks to the 49ers. Giants to the Vikings. Cowboys to the Buccaneers. This is the craziest trash. This is like if your disposal stopped working and you open it up, you're like, what is in here? And this is it. You're starting quarterbacks. You have 6 starting quarterbacks for the NFC wildcard round in 2022. Technically 2023, I guess. They are Eugene Cyril Smith III,
You got it.
Broctavius Purdy the 15th, Daniel Jones, Kirby Cousins, Dak Prescott, and a 45-year-old Tom Brady.
One first-round pick.
Anyone can win this conference.
One first-round pick out of these 6 teams, and that one first-round pick is Daniel Jones. You have a 6th-round pick, 2 4th-round picks, Mr. Irrelevant, and Gino, who went in round 2, and he was so angry he didn't go in round 1. He left Radio City Music Hall. So, all right, quickly, here we go. Wins over Wilson for 49ers Seahawks. I'm going to make that -9.5.
I think that's too high. It's
Well, all right, you can
actually,
take,
no, it's 10. It's 10. You're
I was
right.
going to say, you can, I'm not, this is just me. I'm not looking. I'm just, this is my gut feeling.
It's a good call. It's a good call.
I think I'm still taking San Francisco in that game.
This is a weird plot twist, by the way, that you've suddenly become like an oracle for.
I've always been really good at guessing lines. I don't know how to gambling is strictly luck, but I sort of have a knack for lines.
Well, apparently it's not luck. You've won 2 years in a row, Wilson.
Good point. But 9.5, I'm taking the 49ers. And, we know the talking points. Kyle Shanahan, offensive playmakers, defense, and then Brock Purdy in that order, although Brock Purdy's been really good. Any rebuttal, pushback on that?
Yeah, the only rebuttal is, I guess it's technically Geno Smith's first playoff game too, but Brock
What does he
Purdy's-
have to help him, though?
Dude, Brock Purdy's like, it's all fun. I mean, it's all fun and games until you have, and this happens like in every walk of life, I feel like, where you're, no, I mean, I don't get nervous like sitting down in front of my computer doing a podcast with you goons, but like, you
Can you
put
imagine if you did?
I know, right? But I mean, like, you go up and You're doing, I don't know, you do like a Super Bowl show. I don't get nervous, but you get a little, like, the emotions are a little different. Like, Brock Purdy has a week to think about the fact that he's the starter for the number 2 seed. So either one or two things are true. He's either irrationally confident, which I respect the hell out of, or he's going to be thinking a little bit. As I pointed out, Brady, Manning, like there's almost no young quarterbacks who have good first round playoff games. Peyton Manning went 19-42, man.
Well, let me ask you this, though. And Breech, I'll ask you this. If you had to set up a scenario where you're going to be starting a rookie quarterback, can you think of a better situation than the one that Brock Purdy currently finds himself?
No, between the talent around him and the coaching staff, this is exactly what you want. I would say the only thing that's even been comparable would maybe be the Cowboys in 2016 during Dak Prescott's rookie year, and they were just kind of chugging along. And
Big Ben in 2004 as well is a good.
Well, I mean, but that was where it really felt like the defense was carrying the team.
Those are both two comps.
But both of those work, and neither of those guys got to the Super Bowl. Ben lost in the AFC title game.
He played terribly in January.
And Dak and the Cowboys didn't even win their first playoff game. They lost. They got a bye and lost in the divisional round.
Here's a hot take. I think the 49ers would have preferred to see Aaron Rodgers to Geno Smith.
I was thinking about that during the Sunday night game, and I'm not. That's not even a hot take.
They would gash. The Niners would gash the Packers.
I think that the problem with those Seahawks isn't Geno Smith or Tyler Lockett or Ken Walker or DK Metcalf. It's the defense. And,
Correct.
I was like, okay, I don't know. I was poo-pooing the C-Mac thing. That's the right trade, especially when Debo went down. Debo came back on Sunday, so that's great. And it says a whole lot to Breech's point that Brock Purdy is like the fourth or fifth thing you mentioned about this team. Because you're talking about Kyle Shanahan, you're talking about all the offensive weapons, you're talking about the defense. And if they score 20 points, they're winning this football game, I feel like.
24.
The 49ers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Do you know when the last time the 49ers lost a football game was?
In October.
They probably lost to the Colts or something.
Because they have the longest winning streak in the NFL.
October 23rd against the Chiefs.
Oh, my God. I'm thinking about the Colts game last year in the Monsoon Bowl where Carson Wentz actually won that football game against the 49ers. That's how long ago.
They are
Holy
stomping people on offense. And it's just like, I'm not sure Seattle can defend their run game.
I agree.
And since that Chiefs loss, what have they won? 9 straight?
Is that good?
That's good.
Or 10 straight? Have they won 10 straight?
Yeah. All right. So anything else you
They
want to say about this?
were 3-4 after the Chiefs game, and they are 12-4 now.
Yeah, so they've won 10 straight, but
That's actually 9. Breech.
2 of those they've won 10
I
straight.
said, sorry.
You're okay.
But
8 of those games are against teams that have losing records, and 2 of them are against teams that have winning records. And when you look at
one of them is against the team they're playing this weekend.
They got smoked by the Chiefs, and they won the Seahawks game pretty handily. I felt like the 1 December. I'm not gonna. The week 2 one doesn't mean anything because it was Geno's second start, and the Seahawks didn't look comfortable yet. But the 49ers, I don't know. They dominated the Seahawks. I'm not. I'll probably pick Seattle. I don't think I'll pick any upsets here in this game.
The only argument against Seattle is they have a rookie starting quarterback, and he's going to pee his pants.
Argument against 49ers?
Yeah, the 49ers.
Yeah, sorry, against the 49ers.
And the follow-up to that is hope. If that's what you're hoping for, if you're the Seahawks, hope it isn't a plan. So you better have something else to
and Geno Geno's like a different situation because he's a veteran, but he's never started a playoff game, right? I mean,
I just think if you put Geno on the 49ers and put Brock Purdy on the Seahawks, this game is minus 15.5, maybe more. So the point is that this isn't about Geno and Brock. I understand what you're saying. And look, if Brock comes in and throws 5 interceptions, that's a problem. But I think he won't have that opportunity. Even if they get down 10-0, you just keep throwing screens to Debo and handing the ball up to Christian McCaffrey.
And I'm probably taking the Seahawks there.
At minus 9.5, minus 10?
Plus 10, I'm taking the Seahawks.
We just saw Jarrett Stidham put up 500 yards of offense on this defense.
Okay. That was a dead cat Derek Carr bounce.
Got obliterated on Saturday.
All right, so Vikings Giants, the wins over Wilson.
This one stinks.
I'm doing
Have you not seen the lines?
No, I'm doing -2.5.
For
Oh.
who?
That's actually
For who? Good Lord, it's in Minnesota. I hope the
not
Vikings.
the Giants. It was when I looked earlier. It was Vikings -3,
Yeah,
but Giants +3 was +115.
I'm banging the
This
Giants.
screams
Banging the Giants.
Giants winning this game. Oh God, I forgot the Giants fans hate us, but like, good call, Wilson. By the way,
Thank you.
I mean, I think Kevin O'Connell's a very good coach.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think-
Absolutely.
The Vikings have all the better players and most of the spots, except if you look at and unfortunately, this goes down to Garrett Bradbury versus Dexter Lawrence. Like, if you look at the Giants pass rush, this game is going to be close. Like, that's the bottom line. You look at these two teams, the way they played this year, there is no effing way this game isn't insanely close and doesn't involve a late field goal or some crazy bat smell stuff that, I mean, right? Like, no one's going to blow somebody out here. I'm taking the 3 points if I can get it.
I'm with you. Mike, I hate to say it, Breech, but I'm with him.
I mean, I feel the same way. You look at what
Really?
happened. You look at what happened in the first game, and I know the Vikings won that one 27-24 because I remember every game that involves a 60-yard field goal. Vikings won it on a 61-yarder. And I mean, they had a 61-yard field goal, which is a pretty miraculous place. Field goals of 6 yards or longer do not happen.
They're 11-0 in one-score games.
They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown in the game against the Giants. So 10 of their points are points that, like, you just don't see very often. And I just remember watching that game and thinking the Giants were probably a little bit better team. But you know what? The NFL did the Vikings a favor by not putting Kirk in prime time. They said, all right, you know what? We don't want to ruin their season. Let's put them in the daylight hours. And so that's what Kirk got. But yeah, I think if you're getting 3 points, you got to take it with the Giants.
Kirk could, I mean, like, the Vikings could go nuclear on offense too.
They could. The problem is they have yet to, that's not true. I wish they were more consistent about putting together 60 minutes of football. Usually they do like 48. Sometimes it's 36. Sometimes it's 54.
Sometimes 30.
Sometimes 30. But again, then you have games like that Bills game where they fumbled at the 1-inch line, and that was just bonkers crazy. And those things,
you can't win that. Like, you're not supposed to win that game.
No, they did.
But like, to your point, Wilson, this is where it feels like this is actually a perfectly symmetrical matchup because the Giants have been a luck box for much of the season.
Yeah.
And they're matching up against the ultimate luck box.
Who?
So you're basically playing roulette.
Well, the Giants are the ultimate luck box?
No, the Vikings, they're 11-0 in one-score games. That's impossible.
Oh, I thought you meant the Giants were lucky. I think the Giants are not lucky. I think they're who we thought they are.
I think the Giants' record is better because of how well coached they are.
Right.
And I think the Vikings are well coached, but I think they're just in like 11-0 is impossible.
Kevin O'Connell's not doing what Brian Dable did in New York. No disrespect to Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell should be a top 3 to 5 coach of the year candidate.
Yeah, that's right.
But Dable is a top 1 to 2.
Let me ask you this. What if the Giants are going to Dallas? What's that spread?
Ooh.
Because that spread might be a plus number for the home team.
No way.
Did you see how those teams played in week 18?
Hey, buddy, I'm taking the Giants. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying.
So we don't have to.
It'd be Cowboys minus. It'd be like a suspicious Cowboys minus 3.5. Or something.
I like 1.5 feels steep. Minus 1.5 for Dallas.
Let me ask you this. And look at this NFC like slate. Can the Giants make a run?
Yeah. If they win that game,
they have a good pass rush.
Well, yeah. I mean, so they would play. They would play the Eagles in round 2, almost likely. Oh boy, that Billy's getting nervous.
I mean, that's every Giant.
Giants. You got the boo ready early. You know he's nervous.
That's right.
Every Giants postseason trip ever is their defensive pass rush helping the team making a run, the offense coming out of nowhere and doing just enough.
That's true.
To get them somewhere. I mean,
with
won
good
2 Super Bowls that way.
I know. Look, if they beat the Vikings. Now, what's really crazy is if the Seahawks beat the 49ers in the
Well,
division round, you get Eagles hosting the Seahawks and Giants at either the Cowboys or Buccaneers. At which point, I mean, like the Giants can win one of those games, right?
Yeah,
And,
but we could say that about
and
most of
the
these teams.
Seahawks could beat the Eagles. Like that's, I mean, look, I don't think it'll happen. Not that crazy.
All right, let me do my wins and rules for Buccaneers Cowboys. I'm going to do
Well, real quick, one thing
Oh,
we didn't
sorry,
mention
go
though is that this is Daniel Jones's first start because we harped on that a lot in the playoffs.
That's
We harped
good
on that
point,
a lot
good
with
point.
in the AFC, and so we don't know how he's going to respond to that. And so that's where Kirk Cousins for once does have the experience there. Okay, Cowboys Buccaneers.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
Yeah,
like
Giants are going to get smoked here. Actually, you know what? I'm not. I should go back to my original take. This is the 2017 Bills 2.0. Giants are going to get smoked by the Vikings, and then they're going to be a good franchise for the next 5 years.
Oh man, I'm shaking my head because this Buccaneers thing. I want to say Buccaneers -3.5, and I'm going to take the Buccaneers all day long. I think it'll be less than that. I don't know what the actual line is, but I'm going -3.5.
Wilson, this is the furthest you've ever been off.
Wait, you said Buccaneers. What do you think the line was?
He said the Buccaneers favored by 3.5.
It's going to. Are the Cowboys favored?
by 3.
Yeah, I'm taking the Buccaneers. By the way,
You
at
are.
-3.5, I'm taking the Buccaneers.
Do you want to issue a formal apology to me?
That is the only thing he cannot back out of was that he was totally Tom Brady's going to get rolled in the playoffs. He said that for a month straight.
I didn't know that Dak was going to pull a Tom Brady on me.
Look at this field, dude. Tom Brady might be at the Super Bowl in like 3
Look,
weeks.
man, if Tom Brady has to go to San Francisco for your whatever revenge game you'll come up with, they're going to get. I can't help that the Cowboys stink.
You're so petrified of this.
I'm not at all. I don't mind. I'm not a Buccaneers hater or a Buccaneers fan. I cover the NFL, Brinson. I'm also junior draft analyst, so I cover the NFL draft. This team also has a losing record, I believe. Is that true?
Yep. Those are the two fun facts I gave. The 8 and 9.
In the words of Jay Cutler at the urinal, don't care. Give me the Bucks. They're beating the Cowboys.
I just said that.
My only concern is Todd Bowles.
That is, but Mike McCarthy cancels that out.
Exactly.
I mean, and then some.
The Bucks. I think the Bucks win 2 playoff games.
Wow.
Okay.
NFC title game.
Yeah.
He didn't say that with very much confidence. He's just trying to talk himself into it.
He's trying to talk himself into his Buccaneers Bengals ticket cashing out.
It's like when someone asked me who was 5'10". Yeah. Okay,
Really
buddy.
tight.
I'm not 5'10". Are you nuts?
That's the point.
I'm 6'1".
You're not telling the truth.
No, I mean, I think this is a prime spot to hammer the Bucks.
I think
The
a lot of
Cowboys are going to go to Tampa and poop their pants.
home underdog in a primetime game that's also in the playoffs. That's Tom Brady.
The great Thomas Everett Brady, the 17th.
Breech, would you take the Buccaneers at the wins over Wilson number of -3.5 or not?
No, I would take
Really?
if they were favored by like 1.5. I would.
They're going to win by double digits. I don't think they won't win by double digits, but I think
The Bucks were sitting down Hall of Famer Matthew Stafford and the Rams last year.
the Buccaneers can't score points. But I mean, when you see Dak Prescott play the way he played in Week 18, I got a lot of questions.
And here
Tom Brady the last 3 weeks has been much better than Dak Prescott.
it doesn't look like weather will be a factor. It's supposed to be about 65 degrees at kickoff next Monday. Obviously, a lot can change between now and then, but going to be nice and warm. And by the way, all 6 of these games are rematches from the regular season. This is only the 5th time that has happened since the AFL NFL merger in 1970, and the first time it's happened since 2009. Fun fact.
I found that to be extremely fun.
Thanks, Wilson.
Oh, that was kind of fun. All right. I'm going to put it back up for a second, Billy. I'm going Niners.
Prince is going chalk and he wants to make it dramatic. Go ahead.
No. I was trying to say we're going Niners. I'm going Niners, Vikings,
Oh, you're going Vikings? How dare you, sir?
Buccaneers.
You're acting dramatic about the Buccaneers. We're all picking the Buccaneers, even me.
F you, dude. I've been talking about the Buccaneers. I've been getting screamed about the Buccaneers.
Bragging about an 8-9 team.
You've been hammering me for like 6 weeks talking about the Buccaneers.
They're not a good football team. They are
No
playing
kidding.
a straight up terrible football team
They're
right now.
terrible. You fine, pick the Cowboys.
No, I told you from Jump Street.
Who
Listen,
are your 3 picks?
I'm picking the 49ers. I'm picking the Giants, and I'm picking the Buccaneers.
Welcome to the Tom Brady bandwagon. Breach.
Is that straight up or against the spread?
Straight up, but I don't remember what the number. What did I say for the Vikings? So I think the Giants. If the Giants win, they'll cover. So I think that the 49ers actually win by double digits. So they hit the wins over Wilson number 2.
I will pick the 49ers, but I don't know about any of the other 2 games. I got to sleep on it.
We're doing an NFL podcast. You have to pick the other 2.
I got to sleep on it, Brinson. Fine. I'll take the
You have to pick them right now.
I will take the New York Football Giants, even though I might change to the Vikings. But right now I'm on the Giants, and right now I'm on the Buccaneers because you guys got me all hyped up. There's no way Thomas Edward Brady's going to lose.
Poor Mike McCarthy. Just put his house on the market in Dallas area.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Lovie Smith's crazy decision to go for 2 that cost his former employer the number 1 pick. Next. So Lovie Smith, huge winner on Sunday. They scored a touchdown, could have kicked the extra point to tie it. And Lovie said, nope, F it. I'm going for 2 because I want to win the game. And he got fired on Sunday night. The Texans had the number 1 pick per our high-level stat model from our senior draft analyst, Ryan Wilson, who goes to tankathon.com. I mean, what I personally love it. I think Lovie knew he was getting fired. I was like, I'm not losing this game. Screw you. What do you think, Wilson?
Apparently, he had a lot of conversations in recent days with Cal McNair, the owner, and no one knew what the messages were in those conversations. So it wasn't clear whether he was going to come back no matter what or whether he was going to be gone no matter what. But it was sort of interesting to watch this unfold because, as I said earlier, Lovie admitted that he wouldn't typically do the things that he did on Sunday had this team been in contention to win an early season game or maybe to win a playoff spot, which, on some level – I find annoying because Dan Campbell seems to do the opposite, but whatever. This was arguably the most exciting game, maybe outside of how the Seahawks won at the end there, the most exciting game of Week 18. And it was partly Davis Mills throwing as many interceptions as possible and then coming back and throwing as many crazy touchdowns as possible. And then the decision by Lovie, as you mentioned, Brinson, to go for 2, to instead tie it, instead of tying it, going for the win. And they converted that. And after they scored the touchdown, and I think this is the timing before they went for 2, you see Cal McNair coming down from his suite to the field, and part of me is like, is he running down there to try to fire Lovie as quickly as possible so he doesn't lose the number 1 overall pick? But that's not how it worked out. And I give him a ton of credit. And people talk about tanking all the time. It's hard for everyone to get on the same page to tank because players are inherently wired to win because you can tank if you want to. You may not be there next year. So it's sort of a hard thing to pull off. Now, owners, and we know the Stephen Ross thing about how he reportedly not really tried to tank. I think that's a different conversation. But for me, the bigger issue, Breech, is now that the Texans have gone back-to-back years firing their one-and-done coach. And it makes you wonder, what this means for GM Nick Caserio, because I've actually heard that he's not on as solid footing as perhaps some might think in general, and that's concerning for another Patriots guy who, has yet to turn things around.
But before, sorry, Billy, can you toss up this headline? Because this is the greatest headline on the planet. This is why the Texans are the worst team in the NFL, which is saying something with Dan Snyder in charge of a team and the Chicago Bears. Texas chairman and CEO Cal McNair denies Sage Rosenfeld's claim of playing video games in his office. Sage Rosenfeld once said that he walked in on Cal McNair and it was nothing but a desk and a chair and a TV and multiple beanbag chairs. It was Cal McNair, who currently runs the Texans, Breech, playing video games.
Yeah, I mean, usually if you want an argument not to fire a coach, you would want to see that he can still inspire his guys to win in a game that means absolutely nothing, which is what Lovie Smith did here. But instead, the opposite happened where, the Texans don't say it in their statement, but clearly it was, hey, bro, you just cost us the number 1 overall pick. So we're going to go ahead and fire it. We were on the fence, but that put us over the fence and you're out. And to Ryan's point about Nick Caserio, he was part of the press release tonight. They released a statement from him. And I do think it would be weird if they released a statement from him about Lovie Smith only to fire him the next day, because they could have just released a statement from Cal McNair. So, maybe he gets fired. I don't think it would happen in the next 24 hours. Maybe he gets into an argument with Cal McNair about which coach they should hire. But my God, I just love how the Texans won this game, because this really felt like an FU from Lovie Smith to the ownership. Like it was, they had a 4th and 12 on their game-winning drive, and Lovie Smith could have been like, yo, Davis, just airmail a pass and the season's over. We get the number 1 pick, and no one will just, throw it out of bounds or throw it into the ground. No one will judge anything because we're the Texans and that's what they expect us to do. No, he converts it. And the touchdown they scored was on a 4th and 20. Same thing. He could have thrown it out of the end zone. No one would have thought anything weird. They get the 1st overall pick, but instead, Davis Mills is like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I don't want you guys to draft someone to replace me. So I'm going to try and win this game. So I love that the Texans played hard till the final second, and God bless Lovie Smith for winning this game, because the Texans deserved not to get the number 1 pick.
Breech, you mentioned the 4th and 20. A few plays before that, they converted a 4th and 12 as well to Brandon Cooks on the sideline, I believe, to keep that drive alive. So they had a couple of 4th and forevers that they somehow managed to pull out.
And a 3rd and 13. Or no, they didn't. That was.
And again, we haven't even brought this up because Lovie Smith is unfortunately the loser for winning. But I think you mentioned this in our little pre-podcast conversations. The biggest loser was on the other side of the field with the headset on.
Yeah.
Mr. Saturday, not Sunday.
Mr. Sunday? Jeff Sunday?
I mean, how can Jim Irsay justify hiring him? That's just going to be a whole situation.
He can't at this point.
I don't know, man.
I think Harbaugh's okay. We got a lot of time in the offseason to do that.
Yeah.
Right now, we need to talk about rapid fire mock drafts. Unfortunately, I didn't include the Cal McNair photo. My God, who's letting this guy run anything?
Well, his dad owns the company. What do you mean?
Well, his dad's dead, but yeah.
I understand that, but his dad was
he owns the company
because his dad passed away. He got it through.
I am inherently aware of how that works.
Yes, this is true.
So the Bears have the number 1 pick for the first time since I think 1942.
47.
Oh, 47. Thank you. All right, fine. I'll give you senior draft analyst status for that. If you had to do a rapid fire mock draft, top 10, what would it look like, Ryan Wilson?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because you can watch with the First Pick podcast tomorrow at 2 p.m. and we'll go through those things today on Monday with my buddy Rick Spielman. But for the purposes of this podcast and a mock draft,
you like Rick Spielman more than me, by the way.
I'll give you 1,000 names.
Don't ask questions you don't want her to answer to.
Right. I'll give you 1,000 names to ask, and you can start with some of the worst people in human history, and we'll go from there. We'll work our way from the bottom.
So
anyway, so here's the thing. As I was doing this podcast, I got a text from a scout that said the Bears are not taking Jalen Carter number 1. I said, yeah, I think they're going to trade down, but I don't do trade downs in the podcast.
Before you move on, there is a little chatter, a little buzz.
It's not they're not taking a quarterback.
They're going to trade Justin Fields.
They're not trading Justin Fields. So as we sit here, though,
you're saying they will not trade Justin Fields.
As we sit here, number 1, I have the Bears taking Jalen Carter, although they'll almost certainly look to trade down because there will be teams will be looking for quarterbacks. Number 2 of the Texans taking Bryce Young, which is I had them taking Bryce Young anyway when they had the number 1 pick. So that would be a silly reason to fire Lovie in case, unless you just wanted whoever the Bears end up picking at number 1, even though you don't know who it is. The Cardinals, by virtue of losing, now get to number 3. So they're going to get in this mock draft Will Anderson, but they can get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, which feels like a huge get. Although Brinson's mentioned Justin Fields' future. Who knows what Kyler Murray's future is? His ACL is currently, I don't think he's had surgery yet. And if he has, he has had surgery. So he's 9 or 10 months away from returning.
Waited a while.
So number 4, the Colts, CJ Stroud, which feels like another Jim Irsay falling ass backwards into a quarterback situation because CJ Stroud absolutely balled out the game of his life against Georgia last weekend, and that was even a needle mover for some NFL teams because they had not very many questions, but some questions, and I think he answered those in that game. So good for him. At number 5, the Broncos should be on the clock where they could draft a quarterback. They are not on the clock. That pick went to the Seahawks, and they're taking Myles Murphy, the edge rusher out of Clemson. Lions are at 6 via the Matthew Stafford trade. They take an edge rusher as well, Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. He and Myles Murphy both are long, sort of just physical freaks that are going to get better. At 7, the Raiders are on the clock. Breech, I just mentioned a year ago, Derek Carr was headed to Cincinnati. He's going to be elsewhere, I would imagine. It would be crazy if he somehow came back to Las Vegas. I haven't taken Will Levis, who is going to be as controversial as Mac Jones, maybe more so.
And the Raiders taking Will Levis?
Yeah, at 7. And it's going to be interesting to see the comps with Justin Herbert as well, because Justin Herbert's thing was being physically everything you want. Had a tough senior season, but nowhere near as terrible as Will Levis's last year at Kentucky. It was not even, it's night and day. But teams I've talked to absolutely are all in on Will Levis, which is curious. At 8, I have the Falcons taking Joey Porter Jr., the first cornerback off the board over Keely Ringo. At 9, the Panthers are now out of the quarterback conversation of the top 3 guys because they keep winning games. So at 9, David Tepper's going to have to trade up because Brinson, I think you would agree, David Tepper is out of the free agent quarterback market. Look, I don't feel like Derek Carr is going to be an answer in Carolina.
Depends on the head coach, but yes, generally speaking, no one wants to play for him.
It feels like David Tepper's done with going to that well. So if that's the case, and maybe not, maybe Derek Carr changes his mind.
If David Tepper was poor, he would not be the owner of the Panthers. Let's put it that way.
So that means that David Tepper is going to have to trade up if he wants one of these top 3 quarterbacks, and that's good news for the Bears. Although if they go from 9 to 1, that's boy, but that's something to watch out. 10, the Eagles have the Saints pick from all the crazy things the Saints did last draft. They take an offensive tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. Titans take Jordan Addison, the wide receiver at USC, formerly of Pitt, who is awesome. I don't know if he solves all the Titans' issues. They could be in the quarterback market, I suppose. 12, the Texans have their pick from Cleveland. They take an offensive tackle who can also play guard, and Peter Skoronski. And then the Jets at 13. I'll stop there because that's the last quarterback.
32.
No, I
31. The Dolphins have no first round pick.
That's right, 31. 32 is the Steelers pick. Thanks, Chase Claypool. But the 13th pick is the Jets. I'm taking a quarterback, Anthony Richardson, out of Florida. He may not go that high. I know teams are a little nervous about him, but he has a chance to be special down the road.
So, Breech, out of all these teams,
I had the Panthers taking Quentin Johnston, by the way. Sorry, why Big Jordan, the tall wide receiver at TCU. So
there were 4 teams who traded their future first round picks. Seattle traded 1 to, or Denver traded 1 to Seattle. Rams to Detroit, Saints to Philly, and the Browns to Houston. Who regrets it the most?
Not the Rams because they won a Super Bowl.
Yep. Not Seattle because they made the playoffs and got the pick.
The Broncos regret it the most.
Russ looked pretty good on Sunday.
The Browns might. I mean, it looks like maybe with a competent coach, it's going to be like Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson. If they get someone good in there, maybe they'll be okay. Or maybe that's just me trying to justify picking them to win the Super Bowl and the worst pick.
If they get Sean Payton, like that might be. If Sean Payton takes that job, which has been rumored, I'm concerned about dragging Russ because I feel like Sean Payton could make Russ cook again.
Don't fall for it.
I think the biggest loser
is Brinson. I fell for it. Just don't fall for it.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it.
Okay.
Happy playoffs.
Playoffs are here.
Playoffs.
Go Tar Heels.
How dare you? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Congratulations to the Bengals for making the playoffs, to the Steelers for getting very close,
and to Brinson for getting his feedback situation figured out. Yay, Brinson.
Wow. For no one caring. Go Tar Heels.
Yeah.
Call HR and get that thing deleted. For Breech, for Wilson, I'm Brinson. See you guys later.